Hey friends, welcome back to Prepping with Sarge. Today we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that I made when I started out prepping. This is actually a video response to a video that was done by my friend Prepping by Faith. I will put a link to that down in the description below. I recommend that after you watch my video, go check out hers. And while you're over there, please subscribe. She's a great friend to the channel and puts out fantastic content. Let's get right to it. All right, welcome back. So the first mistake that I made when I first started getting into prepping was cheaping out on gear. I know everybody has to work within the budget that you got, but what I'm going to say is buy the best gear that you can afford within your budget. I wish I had learned that in my first couple of years of prepping. I would buy fancy gadgets and things that looked like they would work well. Then you get them out into the field and you test them out and they just don't work as well as they were advertised or that they appeared as they were going to. And a lot of times if it's cheaply made, it will break, which you don't want to have happen in an emergency. My advice to you that ties into this is make sure you're getting out, testing your gear. A great way to do that, especially with like survival gear, is to go do some camping and bring that stuff and make yourself use it. If it's stuff for like blackouts and that kind of thing, grid down scenarios, then you can either wait till there's the next time there's a power outage and test it, or you can shut off the breakers to your home and then test it out. What you're going to find is that cheap gear is usually cheap for a reason. Buy the best gear that you can afford for your budget. That being said, don't use your credit card to break the bank or go outside of your budget, because that's a bad idea too. You're actually creating a new problem for yourself that you didn't have before. That's going to bring me into my next one, which is thinking that gear mattered more than skills. Gear does not matter more than skills. In fact, if you're on a tight budget, it's more important that you practice and learn things. There's so much good content here on YouTube and elsewhere on the internet that you can learn new things and you can practice a lot of this stuff without having to spend a lot of money, right? So skills before gear. In fact, what you'll find is that while you're building things like your get home bag and your bug out bag, the more skills you've built and the more confident you are in your skills, the less gear that you're going to have to carry. All right, the next thing was building too big of a garden. Depending on how many people you have helping you, if it's a family and everybody's chipping in, you can go pretty big on your garden. Now, at one point I had 7.5 acres when I was living in Kentucky on a mini farm and had 100 chickens. My garden was about a full acre itself. And the thing is, like, at some point that's more food than you and your family are going to need. Sure, you can preserve a lot of it. Sure, you can trade a lot of it, which I did both of those. But at some point it becomes so much work that it becomes almost like a full-time job. Work within the time frame that you have. Work within the time that you have to spare, right? And think big, but also remember that, like, your family life matters too, and other things matter more so than your gardening, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Like if you grow too big of a garden, you're going to find that you're spending all of your time there and you're not getting any time for anything else. There are other things in life that are equally as important, including spending time with your family. The next big mistake that I made was trying to grow so many different things that were outside my grow zone. And I feel like it's such a temptation when you're reading these beautiful seed catalogs and you're like, oh, look at this melon that only grows in Russia. I bet I could get that to grow in my climate. Well, you might be able to, but chances are if you stick to what's known to grow well in your area, you're going to have a lot more of an abundance in your harvest. And also that first year and the second year of your gardening, a lot of times things that you try out aren't going to work as well. So make sure that you're not just planning to, I've stored my apocalypse garden seed collection, right? And if push comes to shove, if SHTF happens, I'll start growing a garden. No, you really have to learn in advance because there's a huge learning curve to gardening. I've been gardening my whole life and I still learn things every year. Sometimes you try something and you figure out it's not going to work in your climate or with your soil, because all soils are not built the same. There's a lot to it. So you really want to find out in advance, and then whatever grows well in your area, grow more of it. Things that do not grow as well in your area, you might want to cut them off the list. And last but not least, the biggest mistake I made in prepping was not starting on financial preparedness more, or not leaning into it more right from the get-go, right? Everybody likes to think, oh, money's not going to matter in SHTF. Gold and silver are not going to matter in SHTF. stocks are not going to matter if like there's an EMP. Well, when you think like that, you're thinking about the worst case scenarios and you're not thinking about the most likely scenarios, which is personal small short-term SHTF, right? Like a giant storm takes out the power in your area, but you've got some cashiers that are still accepting cash, right? Or a tree lands on your car and your deductible, somehow you have to come up with $1,000 deductible to get your vehicle repaired, right? Or, you know, things like that. You get displaced from work because there's layoffs and a recession, things like that. So maybe you're out of work for 3 months or 6 months or even a year, right? What have you put back to be prepared for those situations? I've dealt with a layoff when one of my programs that I was working for got closed down. The funding just got cut out of it, and 40 of us got laid off, and it stinks. It really stinks, and it'll take a heavy toll on your savings account, and it'll take a heavy toll on your mood and your pride and a lot of other things, right? So financially preparing is not about the EMP. Financially preparing is about everything else up to the zombie apocalypse, right? Money does matter until money doesn't matter anymore. So don't neglect that part of your preps. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything new today, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I drop videos twice a week and usually go live on Friday nights at 7:45 Eastern Standard Time to talk about preparedness type topics. Please make sure you check out Prepping by Faith. I will link her video in the description down below. And if you go over there and you subscribe, which I think you should, please tell her that Prepping with Sarge sent you over. Keep planting your seeds, keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.